Sorry.
Oh, thank you. I totally forgot to. Um, but yeah. Hello everyone in the recording. This is week 8. This is our last week. This is the summary of everything we've been doing and actually writing it into things and getting it ready for the portal. Okay, so we have another fun warm-up question. This is if you could have any skill in the world, what would you choose? It can be if you want it to be a superpower, you absolutely can choose that. If you want it not to be, you can also choose something else. Um, I feel like knowing languages is always a good one. Talking to animals, also a good one. Teleportation, also good. Emily, are you typing something? I can see you
Oh.
thinking.
Um, does this have to be like a real skill or
Think so?
I think it'd be really cool to be able to like hold my breath for a really long time. Then I could go like diving and snorkeling and like be able to see everything and like not have to breathe as often, you know?
Would you like want to be able to like breathe underwater or just hold your breath for longer?
See, I feel like breathing underwater is more like a new like adaptation and not like a skill. I feel like there's a difference with that. You know
Hmm,
what I mean? Like a skill, like
I
I can
guess so.
build my lung capacity and like
Okay, okay.
I don't know.
There are people who like I forget they're like pearl divers or somewhere in like they're the people like live near the ocean and like it's just something that they like learn how to do throughout their childhood is just like hold their breath for like stupid amounts of time. Um, but they've been doing it for like so many generations that it like also changed their physiology. I don't know if like yeah, again, don't know if that like counts as a skill because it is something that they like learned, but then it also did like change their body, so it's something that's passed down now in generations.
It's true. Either way, I want to be able to breathe either longer or breathe underwater.
That's yeah, that makes sense.
We have two comments in the chat.
Ooh, okay. We have, oh yeah, looking at a research paper. Yeah, I was like, I feel like I've seen movies. People are like cyborgs or something will like scan something and just be like download. Like that kind of vibe. I agree. I agree. Oh yeah, talking to animals, also a good one. Yeah, I feel like talking to animals would just be like so cool. Like again, like everyday life, just awesome, but then also just like imagine like research and like, oh, like how do you like where do you live, little animal? Tell me. I'm curious. But
Be
like how do
so
you
cool.
communicate with other animals?
Be so cool.
Hmm, right? Emily, I would have to disagree with you. I think that's a horrible one because I think everyone needs sleep and it's good. Bad
But
choice.
but I don't want to sleep. I want to function.
But like sleeping feels so good, you know?
No.
Like when you're really, really tired and you like lay on your bed and it's like I don't care about anything. I'm so exhausted. Like you just fall asleep as soon as your head hits the pillow, like that kind of vibe.
Hmm. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't tend to sleep super well, or like I don't go into a deep sleep very easily. So I usually am very restless. So I really wouldn't care.
You need to start making those like what are they, cherry cocktails or like cherry mocktails, where it's like cherry juice and other things to like help you because I hear that they help you fall asleep because they have like natural melatonin. Um,
Oh.
I think I just read that on the internet though, so believe nothing of what I just said and please double check that.
Nope, I'm gonna go have a Shirley Temple now every day before bed, and if I don't sleep well, I am blaming you.
What's grenadine? Is that the same?
I don't know. I thought it was like cherry flavored.
I guess we'll just have to do a scientific experiment and figure it out, you know?
If only
What
we
a
were
shame.
scientists.
I know.
Okay,
Oh yeah.
I would believe if one of you started talking to animals. but only if you tell me the hot gossip that the animals are talking about. Like I feel like the little squirrels would so be gossiping about each other or like the other little animals. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think other people outside of our field would probably be a little weirded out by it.
Yeah. Fair. Mm. Oh, yeah, the North Quad squirrels, they would. Ugh.
So true.
I don't think I need to know everything though those North Quad squirrels know. Maybe like just you probably know too much, you know.
It'd be interesting though.
Fair,
Interesting.
true.
Interesting. Yeah.
True.
All right. Shall we move on? So just a quick review of our agenda today. So like Lexi said, today is going to be a lot of review and going over examples, really like putting everything together that we've talked about the last 7 weeks, 8 weeks, starting today. So first we're going to do some application review. So going over the different parts that we talked about the last several weeks. And then we're going to show you specifically section 8 of the primer. And some tips and tricks in there. And then we're actually going to show you our examples, so our applications, before going into, deliverables and next time. So the application review. So, going back all the way back to week 1, if you look at week 1, day 2, we went over the different application products. So just a quick review, when you go into the portal, you're gonna have to submit something for each of these fields. So your education and work experience, what colleges did you go to? What, work experiences have you had? Any academic honors, achievements, awards. These things are very similar to what you would put on your CV. You're just gonna also have to upload them manually, like type them out onto your portal. You're also gonna put the proposed field of study, which is very important. It needs to match whatever your proposed research statement is going to be, or that project, what it's going to entail. Your proposed graduate study institution. Um, so again, you don't have to end up going to this institution. You can apply to, as many as you want, but you are going to list one as your focus. And that's going to be, the one that's taken into consideration for your statements. This makes the process a lot easier, actually. Makes your research and like all that way easier. You also are going to need your academic transcripts. So if you have multiple from your time in college, make sure you have those lined up and ready to go. Your GRFP statements, so your personal statement and the research plan. And then lastly, your letters of recommendation. I know it's a lot. Yeah, yeah, I know it's starting to feel a little more real now, but like Lexi said, you both are super prepared. You've been coming to, these meetings. You have support from us, from each other, from, your cabinet of mentors. So don't worry, you got this. All right. Oh, wait, are you going, Lexi, or?
No, I don't know when we wanted the different sections to be.
I was thinking you go over the section A of the primer. Okay. So going into the next week, so week 2, we talked about the 4 pillars. So this is initiative, impact, leadership, and scholarship. So as you're thinking about each of these, remember to look up at the definitions, think about what phase it is. So for instance, initiative is your explorer phase, right? And like the definition says, you're developing the vision, taking that first step, being creative, innovative, risk-taking. And as you think about these things, as you write your products, try to think about these questions to help guide, having these pillars in your writing. So for initiative, What is the spark that drives your first step? Leadership, inspiring action. What do you do with that spark? Your impact, what do you leave behind? And scholarship, how are you communicating the results of your work? So yeah, that was week 2. Hopefully this all seems very familiar. Just want to do a quick overview. Week 3, we did a lot of the like email drafting and all of that. So, we talked about that last time. So we didn't include it here. But you can always go back to week 3 slides if you want to, see them again. Week 4, we started breaking down the personal statement. So, outlining the entire thing. So your personal statement portion of it is going to be about half a page. Your relevant background, the intellectual merit portion is about 3/4 of a page. Your broader impacts is going to be another 3/4. And your future goals and action plan will be about a page. And then again, we have the prompt here at the bottom for you. So in week 4, we also started talking more about the broader impact section specifically. So just remembering, what this is. This is when you want to focus on the pillars instead of the activities themselves. You're going to connect your achievements to the theme of what motivates you. Think about your 6-word mission statement. Why do you do what you do? What is the impact of this? You're going to want to include, the broader impact endeavors, any training, professional development that you did before starting your fellowship. So what are you going to do in order to make sure you have the resources and the skills and for the broader impacts that you're going to do later on? And then, of course, what is the scope and magnitude of your broader impact? Who are you reaching? How are you measuring your impact? So yeah, that was broader impacts. Week 5, we started going into intellectual merit. So this is when you really want to, open up with that mission statement, showing, the significance, the potentially transformative nature of your research. Why is your work so important? But instead of, broader impacts is a little bit more personal. It's a little bit more of a community, a connection. Intellectual merit is the impact and the importance of your work to the scientific community. Yes, still to, like environmental science, you're going to probably be contributing something towards climate change and, researching that. But still the big part of intellectual merit is that the knowledge gaps, that, like I said, the scientific world of your work. And then, of course, here we had, some of our usual questions to consider when, developing your intellectual merit summary. So how did your proposed research explore creative concepts, advance knowledge and understanding? What are the benefits and impacts of your research? How will you foster collaborations? And how will you publish and present your findings within or across disciplines? Last part of your personal statement is the future goals. So we covered this in week 6. So opening with, a statement of why your graduate program or faculty, well, both really, are good fits for what you want to do. Again, like thinking back, what is your goal? Do you want a PhD in this? Do you want to become that? How are these two, the program and the faculty going to help you get there? You also want to present your broader impacts plans here a bit to address all 5 of the NSF merit review criteria elements. Really focusing on the goal of broadening participation in STEM. It's a big one for everyone. And it's a big part of, the GRFP. That's what they really, or the NSF, that's what they really care about. So thank you, Lexi, for including that. Lexi just put in a link for y'all, guiding principles document she has shared with you in the past. Definitely recommend checking that out. I believe it's in the folder as well. I think I added it. Okay, cool. So yeah, so consider these questions as you're doing that. We can go on to the week 7. And then last but not least, week 7, that was our research plan week. So again, like looking at the prompt here, just talking about an original research topic that you propose to do during your graduate work. Definitely make sure you are paying attention, thinking about what skills will you need and how are you going to get them while while you're in your degree. I know it sounds weird to say, I don't know how to do this yet. You feel like, it might feel like you're kind of, um, putting yourself down. But in this case, it's actually okay. They will have, they'll, sorry, I'm not phrasing this very well. In a sense, they're going to have a better understanding and they will actually believe you understand what it takes to do this and to do your degree if you acknowledge that there are things you don't know. If you came in and you said, I already know how to do everything, I can do this project, they're gonna shake their heads and be like, oh, no, they're naive, they don't understand. Like, and I know that sounds a little harsh, but that's what, is gonna happen. That's the point of you going to grad school, is to still learn. So you want to understand what you still don't know and how you're gonna achieve those things. Definitely recommend talking to your mentors about that. That's gonna be the biggest part there. And then the biggest part of this is going to be on the second to last sentence here, address the potential of the research to advance knowledge and understanding within science, as well as the potential for broader impacts on society. Definitely, keep that sentence in mind as you're developing your project. And then, of course, we have the format here. So your title, background, the actual plan itself will take up most of your document. And then a small section for intellectual merit. So, where you're going to present it, publish all of that, and your broader impacts. And then, of course, you'll have a references. Definitely go back to week 7 for more on this format. Lexi did a great job breaking it down for you all. And I think that's it for my part.
Okay, so I know that was a lot of information, but hopefully, like Emily said, that should mostly all be a review, because those are all the different parts of the different products that you have to do for personal statement and then also the research plan. So we're gonna move into section 8 of the primer next. Again, the primer is in the drive and there's the materials, so we have that. It starts on page 35 and it gives a little more details. We summarized a lot of the different tips and tricks and points, so it's a lot more comprehensive. But if you want to read more about that, you can absolutely look into the primer. Okay, so these are 9 different tips that are in the primer. Again, this is an overview, brief details about each of them. In the later slides, we also divided them into different topics. So if you're specifically looking how to improve the messaging of your application, you should look at these tips. If you're specifically trying to work on some of the revisions you have for your work, look at this. And then if you're just looking for more organization and review aspects to change about your application, you can look at those. But so the 9 different tips and tricks we have for you. The first one is bold a key sentence in each paragraph. Pretty self-explanatory. Number 2, refine each paragraph to support its messaging. Number 3, print out a hard copy of your draft statement. 4, read your statements out loud. 5, review your statements as a reviewer, not a writer. 6, review and edit from the bottom up. 7, compartmentalize your revisions and edits. 8, create a cadence of commitment, accountability, and mentorship. And then 9, establish a GRFP timeline. I went through those super quickly, but now we're going to go into each one of those tips and tricks. Some of them you might think like, oh, that sounds like so much work. I'm not going to do that. But I promise you, Emily and I did a lot of these different tips and tricks as we were writing our gap statements, and honestly, even past that, and as we were writing other applications for things, and they do help. I know, unfortunately, they do take effort, but they are good. Okay, so the three main tips and tricks that we have for you for messaging. First one is bolding a key sentence in each paragraph. So Emily and I did incorporate this into the actual final products of our applications. And the guiding question we have to figure out like what sentence to choose to bold is, do they convey the right message and collectively build the narrative arc that tells a cohesive story? So if you look at the bolded sentences specifically in your personal statement, for example, these should be sentences that outline not only like you as a researcher holistically, but then also shows that arc, talking about how you evolved and you did bigger and better things each year in your college career, and as the research you did got maybe more in depth, and as you learned new skills and all those things. So a lot of times they are those topic sentences that introduce ideas for each paragraph. So for the personal statement, if you're talking about your broader impacts, you can talk about maybe some of the broader impacts you did in your freshman year. And then you talk about the next paragraph, you bold a sentence talking about, or the sentence that summarizes what you did in your sophomore year or something like that. So then not only does it show that arc, but then again, also relate to that message and your mission statement of what you're really trying to do as a researcher. And so then the next tip or trick that we have for you is refine each paragraph to support its meaning. Again, this really is just like checking if the supporting sentences reinforce the message and theme of your bolded sentence. So once you have that bolded sentence that summarizes that paragraph, you obviously want to provide evidence for that. And that's when you can, again, talk about maybe the broader impacts that you did, or all of those good things like the 4 pillars, scholarship, initiative, leadership, and all those things. But again, just making sure that everything is relevant to that bolded sentence, so that if people read only the bolded sentences, it tells them a great story. But again, those details are super important. And the last one we have for messaging is read your statements as a reviewer, not a writer. So again, we have that document that I shared with you in the chat that has the 5 different merit review criteria, and that is really aimed to look at the applicant holistically. And so again, these GRFP reviewers are experts in their field, so they do know what they're talking about, and they read a lot of different GRFP applications. So you want to make sure you hit all of those review criteria, because they will pretty much be able to tell straight away if you're missing a section, and you need to just keep that in mind, because sometimes it can be hard to review your work critically as a writer, because again, this is something you've spent a lot of time on, a lot of effort, but just remembering to keep that objective view and imagine that you're a reviewer. And sometimes I know it's hard to look at your stuff critically because you've put so much time, but you're trying the best you can do that. Yes, Emily mentioned that if you use the storyboarding framework in pre-writing, the bolded sentence is your impact sentence. Yes, thank you, Emily. We have the format of that in some of the past slides as well. So if you do want to use storyboarding, those resources are there as well.
I think it's in week 3.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and so we have some more tips. These are all focused mainly on revisions, which we recognize that a lot of these obviously are for revision, but this is for more of the nitty-gritty stuff about revisions. And so when you are actually looking into those editing, they could be grammatical errors or just the flow or structure of some of your paragraphs or sentences. These are tips and tricks that Emily and I use as well. So the first one we have for you is print out a hard copy of your draft statement. So I couldn't find any links, but people have said that having a physical copy overrides the autocorrect from reading digitally, because now a lot of the stuff we do is digital, and so you kind of just like glide over words sometimes, which is fine. But for something like the GRFP, you want it to be obviously perfect. So just printing out that physical copy and reading it in front of you and like marking up things is sometimes a better way of editing. Again, it does sometimes take time and possibly money. But if you go to school, you can use their printers. And it'll just help you edit some of those things sometimes and just get you into that mindset as well. The next one we have is read your statement out loud. I do this a lot because sometimes it just helps you hear poor sentence structure or even poor grammar better. I do this when I write emails as well, where I'll a lot of times Emily and I will write emails like together to like send to you all or announcements and stuff, and then I'll be like typing along, and then I read it out to Emily, and I'm like, that made no sense at all, and I'm so glad I read that out loud to Emily, because I would have sent that out 100%. And it just sometimes like just reading it out and just forcing you to slow down and pronunciate all those things just allows you to catch those edits sometimes. So again, yeah, it's just something we use. We did use it on the GRFP, but also everyday use is wonderful for this as well. So the next one we have is review and edit from the bottom up. So going in the reverse direction can help with waning attention and perspective of your text. A lot of times when we edit things, we automatically start at the introduction and then go down. I know sometimes like when I'm writing as well, like my beginning paragraphs will be like amazing, wonderful. They'll have so many words in them, they'll have such great structure. And then as I keep going down and writing those other paragraphs, they get like smaller and like worse sentence structure and like, oh look, there's a bunch of grammatical errors. So just starting from the bottom sometimes and going up can again help with the detention. But then I think it also helps make sure that you have that structure of your messaging as well. Because a lot of times when we do this writing, again, we want to try to follow that funnel structure. So whether it be at like the beginning of your research career or just like in general topics of your writing, you start out super broad and then you get more and more specific as time goes on. So obviously you can see the reverse of that when you start at the bottom. And it also just makes sure that you can, if you do those bolded sentences, all those bolded sentences connect in the opposite way as well. It just helps to get another perspective that way. And so with that, another tip or trick that we have is compartmentalizing your revisions and edits. So this is less so like specifically how you edit things and more just one of those tips and tricks to organize yourself when you're making revisions. And so this tip is talking about setting up focused writing blocks. So I hope that all of you have a writing schedule at this point and have like maybe certain days where you know you have to write something. I understand that it's sometimes really hard to do this during the summer because every day is different. But especially as we enter into school and all those good things, just having those structures because you lose time with all those classes you have to go to, but getting the most out of those writing blocks and dedicating them specifically to different things can help you revise and edit all of your writing. So the examples that we have are just having like a block for maybe working on overall structure and narrative flow, then maybe another block for paragraph construction, maybe another one for like transition and like what you're making sure everything flows and you have that structure of the funnel as well. It just sometimes helps break up those different blocks so then it's also easier for you to focus, but then again making sure that you truly focus and you get all of that stuff that you need to get done in the allotted time. So the last ones tips and tricks we have for you is the organization and review tips and tricks. So the first one is establishing a GRFP timeline. We already set one up for you, so this one should be a little bit easier. In the primer, there is another timeline, but Emily and I like ours better. probably a little biased because we created it, but it is taken from a lot of the timeline that's on this one in the primer. That being said, we believe that like the one we set up specifically gives more time for you all to draft and revise your statements, because they are such big documents and so specific and need to be so concise in things. Yeah, Emily is saying that it needs to be realistic. Yeah, I agree. Like just giving you the most time you can in order to fit in those other things, like summer research, absolutely. Can just again be realistic, and we know we don't expect you to have all these things done by like next week. So that's good. But again, these are things that we think are maybe better, but if this does not work for you, that is okay. You can adjust the timeline to your own needs and to your progress so far. Yeah, Joanna, that sounds rough. So yeah, unfortunately, if you need to put off some of the stuff right now, I mean, don't put off everything. Please get those emails out to your PIs. But if you need to hold off on some of those other things, like your research plan or doing more of those personal statements and just pushing them off a little to like the beginning of school, I think it's easier to do that. It also just gives you more time. We recognize that everyone is at also different steps in the products as well. So if you have some of these steps done already, that is perfectly fine. But again, that being said, please give yourself time. Don't finish things the night of, because remember, all of you will have different submitting times as well, depending on the different subject you choose. So if you're working on it with another person and they're like, oh, don't worry, mine's like October 20th, yours might be like October 16th, and you have like less than a week than them. So just keep those things in mind. You should get all of these done still by like beginning of October, please. But again, yeah, you set your own pace, whatever works for you. And then the last tip and trick that we have for you is creating a cabinet of mentors for support and accountability. Again, this is just making that team that you know can support you and give you feedback holistically, but is also focused and is able to give you really good constructive feedback. Because as was helpful that as Emily and I are, we only really know you in a more research class kind of vibe, and an actual teacher or professor or even your lab mentor might be a better person. So we can help you, but again, some people and some mentors that you have are just better suited for specific feedback. And also, again, with that or mentorship team, you will need to include some of those time buffers that it will take for you to send stuff to people to respond to you, then to like make those edits and then send back the new version. Like that is going to take time, and we recommend that you do factor that into your timeline, because it also depends on the mentor as well. Some mentors reply really, really fast. Sometimes, like you need a week before they even like look at their email. So again, just whatever which is best for you. So please just use that information and take this caution. Yeah. Oh yes. One last thing. This is just a something that Emily and I also liked looking at, was just other examples in general. So there is, I'm just gonna click it. Oh man. Here we go. So this is another website. So this is an example of a student who got the GRFP and created this website, so then you can actually look at a bunch of different successful applications. So it's super, super helpful. So you can actually also see what area they were in. And this goes pretty far back too. Like this is all the way to 2006. I'm hoping we were all born by then. Right? Yeah, I think we were all born. But anyway, yeah, this is just a super good example. The nice thing about this, is it also tells you the ratings, which I know we haven't really talked a lot about, but so once you get your application filled in and like the reviewers review it, they will actually send you this sheet, and comments of what you can improve on for like different sections of your work. So depending on the person's topic and also like what feedback they got, you can then use that to influence some of your writing. If you want to change certain things, if you like certain things of stuff, please don't plagiarize. But just good sometimes examples to help. And thank you, Emily, for putting in that chat. But yeah, highly, highly, highly recommend. These are people who did win it. So sounds good. Okay. Then I guess Emily's gonna start off. Mine's really gonna be fast, Emily, so you can take your time because it's gonna be very probably similar to yours.
Are you okay? Cool. Do you mind clicking on mine then, or do you want me to take over? I mean, you can also share yours first if you want.
It might be easier just to have you click around on yours.
I think I right here. Da-da-da. Okay. So that's loading. So we just want to take a little bit of time to show you all our examples, but they are linked there. Because we are getting a little close on time now, so you can always go back and look at ours. Please do not copy us. Still, can't do that, but you can look at ours and get an idea, like, what we've been talking about. This is what we mean. This is how we're putting it together.
Yeah.
So as you can see, this is my submission for my personal statement. So at the top here, just my little statement there. And then, sorry, I have my little, personal statement here. So, as we said before, this is like a quarter of a page, maybe half a page. It's just, I mean, mine's a little cliche at the top, but that is what it is. But I talked about, my start getting into my passion for science and how, my mom helped with that, how my family helped, and like just my journey, and then, going to college and doing all of this. And then, this is where I'm really getting into my mission statement here. So, my experiences and background define my goals of being a scientist and guide me as I go on to pursue my PhD degree in ecology. But then here, just being a scientist is not enough. So here's my bolded sentence, right? My impact. To make a long-lasting impact in conservation, we need to be dedicated to finding unique solutions by being empathetic to stakeholders and open to new perspectives. So that is my big mission statement, is audiences, perspectives, in addition to the science. So that's what I'm really trying to get there. So I'm setting the stage here with, I've always been interested in science. This is how it evolved. It evolved to care about this. And now let me take a step back and tell you how I got more into my passion for science. So going into the intellectual merit part, right? So, I already said that I want to get my PhD in ecology. Well, where did I start to get that? I first discovered that my first research experience. So this whole first paragraph is my first summer research experience. I have my little bold sentence here, which was, what I felt was important from that experience. I'm talking about the project. I'm talking about where it is, my bold sentence, and then, saying this is an important part, intellectual merit. You should be saying when you presented your work, if it's in process of being published, anything like that. So I gave this as an oral presentation here. Then I presented again. Why did I present again? Well, to reach a broader scientific audience I presented it here. And I will present there. I'm also going to be a co-author of this. So I'm telling them what is the impact, how am I, this is my benchmark phase, right? My scholarship part of my intellectual merit. Okay, sorry, I'll go a little faster. So, going into that, I'm trying to show you here like my journey as a scientist. So working with scripts sparked my interest in marine ecology, but I still wanted to know more. I want to explore other areas of ecology. That's a big field. So I talked about that. I did this next experience. How did that impact my research, right? From there, I wanted to also pursue this to strengthen my scientific writing communication. So then I go into my next experience working as an intern with environmental consulting company. Talking about the products I created while I was there, right? My scholarship again. So you can see with each of my first sentences, yeah, I'm introducing my next experience, but I'm showing you the flow of why I did what I did. I didn't just say, oh, I happen to do this, I happen to be over there. No, you see the purpose behind all of my actions. I started with this, yes, but then because of that, I went on to pursue this. I still need to build my skills in this. So I did that. From there, I continued on to do this. So you see my evolution as a scientist. Going into my broader impacts, you're kind of taking a step back in a different way. Now quite literally talking about your broader impacts. Like I said earlier, this is a more personal side of it. So I talk about being first gen in STEM, my experience with UROC. And then, so, I haven't talked about UROC yet, really, but this is my time now to bring in other experiences I've had and how they're still helping me grow. Or even tying in from other ones. So, here I talk about UROC and how I made this group. But then in the next paragraph, I talk about during this internship, I talked about my intellectual merit, how I used that opportunity and I recognized a gap, right? Became aware program did not have the resources to do this, to do a summer symposium. So I took the initiative and did it myself. So, tying back to the other experiences. And again, you see like the evolution of what I did. And then the last but not least, future goals and action plan. So bringing back, I really recommend doing this, like bringing back what your original goal is, because they've already read, or was that like 2 pages? They're going to forget, or maybe, maybe not forget, but it's good to reiterate. Like Lexi said, they're reading a lot of these. So I'm saying, I want to be this and get that. And reiterating like, okay, so now this is where I'm saying like, this is specifically where I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go to UC Santa Barbara and I'm going to study this thing. Then I'm talking here about my PI and how he's going to help me do this. And then I'm talking about what else I'm going to do there. So, I also want to be a university professor, right? That's what I talked about before. Well, in order to do that, I need to build skills and mentorship. So I found these programs at, UC Santa Barbara that I can utilize to help me with those things. I'm also going to, apply to be a research mentor here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring my group that I had at CSUMB to this school as well. I plan to build a cohort of mentors. I plan to do this and that. And so, yeah. That's pretty much it for my research or for my personal statement. I know that was a lot, but you can always go back and read it more if you are interested. I did get very good remarks on it. I got on my application for both my research plan and this, you'll get a total of 6 different reviews. So 3 different reviewers will give you 2 scores. One on the intellectual merit and one on your broader impact. and I got 5 excellent and 1 very good in all. So my reviewers seem to like it, worked very hard on it. Yeah. Lexi, I know we're already at time. Do you want to show them your research plan?
Yeah, I can do the research plan and less of my personal statement, if that makes it better.
Sorry, it's a lot to like show.
Mhm. Yeah, I might, or, mm,
I say just show
what
them
would,
the research plan.
mm,
They will not. So you will be submitting this in, like kind of mid to late October. And then you're likely to be submitting your grad school applications maybe as early as December, going into, the early spring. But you won't get your scores back until like April. So yeah.
super quick, yeah, Haley and Joanna, which one would you both rather look at, personal statement or research plan?
A little heartbreak. Yeah, it's fair.
Cute emoji. Research plan, okay, I can do that.
Would you all like us to go over the other examples on Thursday? We were planning on having a like shorter meeting Thursday, but we can continue to go over these then too. Yeah, you do. So you should be able to use the links in the slides. Um, and then we can also upload to the drive. You both are using the drive, right? You have,
Yeah, all of these documents should be shared with anyone, so as long as you have the link, you should be able to access it.
yeah.
Um,
Okay, cool. Yeah.
so my research plan is set up a little bit differently from Emily's. Um, my research plan was also something that I had never researched before in my life. Um, so it was a little bit interesting for me, because I knew some of the topics and some of the methods from doing similar work. But the main thing that I was focusing on was remote sensing, which again, I had never worked on in my life. It was also in estuaries, which I've done some field work in, but that is not my main field of study, which is a little different and it can be a little bit daunting too. And I think might have hurt me a little bit in the end for the application, but I saw a lot of fun doing this, and I actually did this project, by the way, side note, because some of my comments on this were like, oh, I don't know if it can actually be done. I did this actually for my capstone. Um, so they were wrong and I did do it. But that's not relevant at all. Um, but again, so I have my title at the beginning. I made sure to illustrate like I'm using remote sensing, using suspended sediment as a proxy to track macronutrient concentration in estuaries. And then I gave a background. The background does have different citations in it because I did obviously reference a couple things for statements that I was talking about, making sure that people knew that this was already a previously there were studies that were done that were close to this study, but just showing that I actually did fill a knowledge gap and that my research was necessary. And it had a bunch of different implications as well. Because after that background, I then went into my objective, talking about I propose to use remote sensing to detect remote or detect sediment loads approaching estuaries, thus implying nutrient load in order to employ mitigation protocol and aiming to reduce the negative effects on a vital and sensitive system like an estuary. Um, so again, this is just talking about some of the broader impacts of my research, and if I was able to actually do this work as my research that full time and they would pay for it, it would actually have a bunch of different results and you could use it on a bunch of different fields, not only just environmental science. And I also talked about other outreach materials as well that I could produce once I actually did this research and things like that, which I do tie into my different aims as well down below. So to start off, I have my first aim, which is develop an algorithm for predicting macronutrients from suspended sediment using remote sensing and USGS data. So this is actually the aim that I actually did my capstone on. So I did this. But again, I have my hypothesis, my methods of things that I'll use, the specific tools and resources that I'm going to be able to use. And then also, again, the bolded sentence of if that actually does happen and it does work, then I can have a product that I can then use for other aspects of my research and can create other products and just continue down that line. Because with that, then I said, like, once my aim 1 is established and proven correct, then I can get into my aim 2, which is just generalizing my model. So once I have an algorithm that works and I can apply it to a bunch of different estuaries, proving that my research does work and can be manipulated, or not manipulated, but done again, replicated. That's what it is. Replicated and can also be done across the country as well, and work on different environments as well. So then I talk about then my hypothesis and then my methods, again, having all those different resources, and so like specifically collaborating with universities and research stations to get all of my readings and samples and all those things done. Because then I then talked about, like, once my algorithms for different areas are established, then I can establish it even more, and also use it to predict other things that will be relevant to sediment samples. And so then with my third aim, I really focused more on outreach, and making a product that was accessible to everyone. So for this aim, I said I wanted to integrate remote sensing data with an interactive map able to be used for management purposes that also ranks possible factors impacting macronutrient concentrations in suspended sediment. So using different factors, I think I specifically said I was going to use random forest modeling, which is just a modeling system that can be used to detect different factors that influence different environments. So I was going to use that. Oh yeah, I literally say it right here. I can use different things to basically show that these factors can influence the nutrients in a river and have negative influences. But don't worry, because I will also create a map that anyone can use, not only just management people, but also the general public, so then they can educate themselves, but still be used to like a research grade quality. And so then you can like mitigate different negative impacts on people. So then once I illustrated like all of the different steps and methods that I would use in my different research plan, I then of course talked about the intellectual merit. And so I talked about how this would be a novel way to track macronutrients and estuaries, and then also help establish mitigation practices for a better line of defense for estuaries across a span of different factors. And so again, I also illustrate how I already have some experience in a similar field because I have done water quality sampling, and so I know how some of the science works, but then I also have an interest in the more outreach and global impacts aspect of these plans that I have as well. So I'm the perfect person for it, and that's why you should pay for me. And then, of course, I also talk about broader impacts and the benefits of educating other people and knowing how to use different tools that can help them. Because for a lot of different things, when we talk about broader impacts, we again want to focus on the public and how we can affect and help the most amount of people. And then, again, making different products, though, that takes the pressure off of them and make sure that you really can teach them the most that you know. So, for example, I talked about doing different workshops that would use different resources from the school that I was trying to apply to increase just the amount of people and the best way to get this information across. I also then talked about the Center for Evaluation and Assessment on campus that I wanted to apply to for all my research stuff. And then of course I have my references at the bottom. Yeah, that is my research plan. I would recommend putting in graphs and pictures. I did not, because I had never done this work before, and so I didn't actually know how to make remote sensing pictures at the time. But now I do, and now I could have. So yeah,
You
just
don't
a reminder again. Oh,
you don't need pictures and stuff though, just like so you all know. Like mine doesn't have them either. Um, but you definitely can.
do we have edits? I think we do, actually. Let me see if I can find one right now.
We can definitely
Um,
look at what we have, and I'll like go through mine and see if I can get you guys like different, like the different versions.
yeah, honestly, I think my research plan does not, because I wrote this one really fast because my mentor, who I was supposed to write this with, things ended up falling through, so I had to write this with two different mentors and kind of squish together different things very last minute. So don't do what I did. But I don't have, I just edited it on this form. So yeah.
When you are asking like show us or show you what they look like the different drafts or examples with the pictures in them.
Like different drafts to see like how you guys edit it or like what that shape should look like how much editing and what like I don't know if that makes sense, but what that editing looks like what we should be looking at, I guess.
Like the evolution of ours.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. I can definitely try to find some of mine and like some of my I had like a lot of random documents with like notes and ideas that I would just write down stuff, especially in the early stages. And then it all just kind of started clicking at some point.
I can show you one. This. Okay, so this is one of my past versions of this. So this is actually further along in the process, but so this is a combination of my edits, edits from Ingrid and edits from Emily, in writing this because we often have each other look at written things. Um, so this is kind of fine tuning it, but as you can see, these are just like things that I added. Maybe it's like a couple of words or like a phrase to help flesh out some of these ideas and make sure I'm getting them across. Um, and some of them are like just fully just like crossed out and been like, no, that sounds awful. Don't write that. And then I just like write something completely new with again edits from Ingrid and Emily. Um, okay. This is a very late one. Um, this is literally October 20th, and I think I turned it in like October 22nd. So again, this is bad. Don't do this. But this is also again just like having people read it. So this is less structure focused and more of those grammatical errors and things like that.
I think I remember those revisions. I think we were sitting in the library cafe, all three of us, all collectively
Yeah.
freaking out.
Sounds about right. Yep, yep.
Mhm. All right, we are at time. Um, I'm scared, part three. You got it. Don't worry. I mean, it is scary. Like, we were scared, but you have our examples. We've gone through a lot of info with you all that a lot of people don't take the time to like figure out and learn. So yeah, Haley, you're right. You got this.
Also, something to note too, is that you both are undergraduates, and you also like once if you don't get this, you can also apply to it once you actually become a master's or a PhD student. So if you don't get this first time, a lot of people don't, and it actually takes them like 3 or 4 times to really fine tune writing the GRFP in order to get it. Because again, I know it's a lot of information, but the NSF, like, there's literally so many different resources and classes and tips and tricks and things that people spend their career learning about. Um, so this, like, if you don't get it the first time, that is okay. For some of these positions, you're writing against PhD students who have already started some of this work and are like 2 or 3 years into it. So do not feel bad. This is very, very difficult and very, very hard.
Even
Just
if
want to
you
put that out.
don't get it, look at your scores and look at the comments. I didn't get it, but I got great scores. And so I can use that now and go back and say, hey, I want to join your lab. I'm applying for this again. Look what I got as an undergrad. Imagine what I can do in your lab with your support. I can easily get that thing. Well, maybe not easily, but you can use your scores and the fact that you've done it to still, you know, advocate for yourself because this is an accomplishment.
Yeah. Another side of that is I also ended up not even applying to the school that I thought I was going to apply for when I wrote the GRFP. And so I got into UC Davis and ended up going there. And my program is fully funded, even though I did not get the GRFP. So there are also many other pathways. It does not have to be linear. When I wrote the GRFP, I definitely thought I was going to go to Santa Barbara and like do all these things, but that shifted, and that is totally okay. And I still have a fully funded program, so it's all good.
So we just have our last little few sides, like the usual ones. We'll show you all real quick. So, just the usual timeline, be keeping these things in mind. You've seen it a million times now. You can go back and see it next time. Oh, Lexi, do you want to do it or sorry? Okay. So next time is gonna be our last meeting. So we're just gonna do kind of like a little check-in with y'all. This will be probably more, informal, just talking about where you are. If you have any last questions, it's a great time to ask. We are still gonna be here for you, but our last kind of meeting. If you have anything, from today you want us to go over again, anything like that, please let us know. But we're gonna try to have this be a shorter meeting so that you all have more time to, kind of brainstorm stuff, ask questions, work on your products. So yeah, a little sad, but exciting. Here are the usual resources for y'all. We actually only have one more just right tomorrow, Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. But of course, we have our folder. And if you have questions that are like way more specific about the application or, the portal, anything like that, there's a NSF office hours coming up. I definitely recommend like making your account soon. So that if you have any issues with it for any reason, you can go to the office hours and just start getting a look at what it looks like and all of that.
And again, just reiterating, we still have support for you after Welcome to Feedback Week and after the symposium. So again, all the links are here, appointments, calendar stuff, all those good things. Super quickly again, just the POP, which is the professional organizational potluck that we have tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow. Oh my gosh. From 2 to 3. We have the Zoom link here. We also just sent out an announcement that has the Zoom sign up or the Zoom link, the sign up sheet, and this flyer again. Please come to it. It should be fun. It'll be me, Emily, and Natasha, and hopefully other people sharing some cool tips and tricks. And then again, that Welcome to Feedback Week is next week. Okay, that's it. That's okay. It's actually Zoom.
Sorry.
No worries. But yeah, it is Zoom. So yeah, you can You bring your food on the Zoom. We'll bring food. It'll be fun. It'll be great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you later. Thank you.
Thank you.